ومكارم أخلاق ترفعنا فوق الآفاق.
So, brothers and sisters, tonight we are with our brother and our Sheikh Abdur McCarthy, and our subject is New Atheism Movement, inshallah. And Sheikh is the director of English section of Sahaba Academy. So he's also Dawah trainer since many years. He is training da'iyas from all the world, and also he have many interviews in TVs. So we are very happy, Sheikh, that you are with us tonight, and let us hear from our Sheikh, inshallah.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. The topic we have tonight, the new atheist movement, it's perhaps one of the most important topics that we will study here with you guys or cover in the Sahaba Academy. And alhamdulillah, we've had this month 3 lectures from 2 brothers who are specialized in issues of atheism. We had last week with our brother Imran Hussein, and this should be uploaded, or if it's not already uploaded, on our YouTube channel. And yesterday we had with our brother Ustad Subur Ahmed. Very, very nice lecture. Talked about Darwinism and scientism and naturalism, and he very, very informative. Inshallah, that should be uploaded soon as well, inshallah ta'ala. And as a follow-up, and perhaps this should have been the introduction lecture. Actually, I was listening last night, talking about the new atheist movement. And obviously tonight, the main things we're going to cover is what is this movement, who are their leaders and their icons, some of their ideas, their quotes, what drives them, their most famous books, and how they use media and education, and especially science, to spread their ideology, and the main characteristics of this movement, how do they spread their ideology, and the dangers of the atheist movement, especially when it comes to our children and their education, and from media, even for ourselves, honestly, but in the children perhaps more so, and how many Muslims directly support this movement. And this, when I said this before, people were shocked, like, astaghfirullah, no way. Even here, the brothers and sisters who are with us tonight, or the ones who watch it later online, I want you to stop at this question just for a minute, because I'm almost positive everybody with us from the Muslims is going to say, no way I would support this movement. No way I would let my children be part of this movement. But as you're about to see, when you go into some detail, you're going to find that many of us, if not all of us, I know some exceptions, some brothers and sisters who are still holding firm and have principles that wouldn't allow them to fall into this trap. But the majority, I can say easily, guaranteed, that the majority of us have fallen into this trap where we are members and supporters of this movement. Indirectly, obviously, not directly, but you're going to find indirectly that many of us support the issue of or support this movement of the new atheist movement. And you look at the issue of atheism when it comes to the belief or non-belief in Allah's existence. There's 4 main belief systems. And just to summarize as a madkhal before we enter, the definition, first of all, obviously the issue of atheism being the main thing we're going to talk about tonight. And obviously basically meaning not believing in God. When it comes to the definition, there's many definitions, many differences. Some people accept this definition, some people don't. But obviously it's a disbelief in the existence of God or any gods. And the definition, when you look in the Webster dictionary, it says a lack of belief or a strong disbelief. And that's very interesting, that the fact that they say that it's a lack of belief, that there's actually a difference. If you look at the atheist in Muslim countries and the atheist in Western countries might fall into the second part of the definition, which is the ones who have a stronger disbelief in the existence of any creator. Whereas maybe there's a lack of belief, and many of the Muslims, you'll find that they're not, who identify as being atheists now, the ones who were born as Muslims, many of them are not very strong in their belief system. They're more people who are just kind of, going with the flow. The issue of science and, what science has reached in research. And it's actually amazing. All of us agree that it's something amazing. But many people who don't have strong foundation in their own religion, they've been influenced by this movement, and they, go with the flow, go with the ones they see as being stronger, having the upper hand, being in with the cool crowd. If you go into many universities, people think that, it's cool to identify as an atheist. Now I'm someone who's modern. I'm not someone from the dark ages, like people who believe in God. So this is that type of thing. And this is actually one of the things that movement focuses on, is making their movement something that's very appealing to these individuals. But when you really talk to them, a lot of times it's just, being part of the flock, going with the flow. You'll find a lot of times in Muslim countries that it's being rebellious against Islam because of the takhalluf, or the backwardness in their countries. But the irony of this, and it's something I always speak about, is, the irony of this is that, why rebel against Islam? Is it Islam's fault that the Islamic countries are the way they are? No, so yes. But none of these governments, who are the backwards governments, with the backward systems, who are causing all the problems in the Muslim countries, who are the ones who are stealing from their own people, none of them practice Islam. None of them has put Islam as the country's laws, as the dastur, the constitution of the country. None of them. And maybe one country in particular, they before they had a lot of part of Islam, but generally speaking, 99% of the countries, none of them, they put Islam. They have some things from Islam, but even the French law, if you go back and study in detail, many of it was taken from Islamic law itself. And these are research papers, you can find that. So why are people rebelling against Islam when Islam is not even being implemented? This is the irony that really is somewhat mind-boggling. And the backwardness has nothing to do with that. Even if you look in early history, the advancements of the Muslims, and many of the new atheist movement, they try to downplay this. But many of the leading historians in science, and in last night's lecture, our brother Sabur, he alluded to this, that many of them, that they are, they have mentioned the Muslims' contributions, and it's not something small, as they might want it to be, something very major in the scientific fields, how high the Muslims have reached during those times, and it's something Islam has always supported, the issue of science, alhamdulillah. And obviously you have other things that are not maybe religions, but they're also atheist. For example, Buddhism. They consider religion because they have different philosophies and spiritual things that are similar to religions, but they don't believe in the existence of God, so they themselves are atheists. That's what one of the leading atheists of our time, of the new atheist movement, Sam Harris, in an interview, he talked about the importance of Buddhism being removed as considering a religion and just being a philosophical movement. And it's something interesting when you reflect on that. The fact that many of the people who identify as being atheists, and you'll find many of the famous people, actors and what have you, many of them have gone, because they left their own religion, they've gone to Buddhism because they're looking for a spiritual side. And it's something they've lost. When they lost religion, they lost the spirituality. And this is something that's human nature. It's fitrah, that we need that spiritual side in our life. Therefore, they're looking for another way, and they find this maybe in Buddhism with, the issue of meditation, what have you. And many famous people, if you look at, they have the power mornings, they talk about, Barack Obama, in his morning, they have a spiritual, part of the morning, exercise, eating healthy, getting up early, and a spiritual session. Oprah Winfrey has that. She has like a spiritual room where she sits in her house. It was very interesting when you looked at her morning. She's reading different scriptures, from them the Quran. She reads the Quran. She reads the Bible, the Torah. She reads Hindu scriptures. Different spiritual or religious spiritual boost for her in the morning, because it's something that we need. And that's why Allah, our Creator, He told us, very clearly, "Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innu qulub," that indeed through the remembrance of Allah, the hearts find assurance. And that's something that we need. Allah, He's the one who created. He knows what we need. So with the people, when they go away from their fitrah, they go away from their natural creation they were created to, they find this this emptiness inside, to looking for another spiritual way out. And that shows us that those who are working here in Sahaba Academy, those who are attending with us, we're into giving da'wah and training du'at. And it's something we really have to focus on ourselves. And alhamdulillah, we have a new program. It's in Arabic, but perhaps we can, put some of it into English and maybe the whole thing into English soon, inshallah. We have a new program coming up in 2022 and 2023. So to Surukum, inshallah. It's going to make you guys very happy when you see it. Very amazing programs we have coming up in Sahaba Academy, inshallah ta'ala. And one of the things we're going to be focusing on is the spiritual side for ourselves as du'at. And when we have that, it's something that we can share with others, inshallah ta'ala, and have a very positive impact. The second group are the agnostics. They're the ones who are, they don't believe, don't disbelieve. Maybe it's possible. Maybe many of them might be closer to atheists, and many of them have been shaken by the issue of the new movement of atheism. So they become, his fitra, what's inside. He's saying, I believe it's very possible, but what they're saying, it sounds, because a lot of what they're saying and the stuff they come with, if you don't have strong foundation, and this is the importance of knowing these things, because if you don't have strong foundation and you read some of the misconceptions, some of the shubuhat that are being put out there by the new atheist movement, it's very, very easy to go astray. And that's why many of the youth, of the youngsters, they've gone astray and they've fallen into a type of, if they're not atheists, they might be agnostic, where they're, mutaraddidun. They don't really know. Maybe, perhaps this could be it, perhaps that could be it. They're not really, really sure. So it's important that we understand, we take out the time to study these misconceptions, but at the same time, before you go into the darasa of studying shubuhat, the study of studying shubuhat and misconceptions, that you take out the time to study your own religion. Make sure you have the strong foundation first, and then go into studying their misconceptions. And this is from the qawa'id, the principles, of the methodology of the Muslim, as it came in Sahih Bukhari, from the hadith of Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman radiyallahu an, where he said in the last chapter of Sahih Bukhari, Kitab al-Tawheed, in the beginning of the chapter, كان الناس يسألون رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخير وكنت أسأله عن الشر مخافة أن يدركني. And he said that the people used to ask the Prophet ﷺ about the good, but I would ask him about the evil out of fear that I would fall into it. As it came in the famous poetry in Arabic, عرفت الشر لا للشر لكن لتوقيه. That I know, I learned the shar, not because of the shar, not because I want to know the evil, but in order to stay away from the shar. And whoever doesn't know the shar, waqa'a fihi, whoever doesn't know the evil, that he falls into it. So it's important that we know the evil in order to prevent ourselves from falling into it, and to refute it, and to save others from falling into it as well. The third and fourth category, just quickly, like we said, just as an introduction to the main categories that people will fall into in belief system, is deism. And deism is the belief in the existence of a supreme being. They believe in the creator, but they don't believe that he's in control or he intervenes in the universe. They believe that Allah, he's the one who created the universe, or that there's a supreme being that created the universe. They believe in the creator, but they don't believe that he controls and intervenes in the universe. So they're a bit in the middle. They have the bidayah, the beginning of the belief, and some of the belief of rububiyyah. Even rububiyyah, they don't have kamil, they don't have complete belief in rububiyyah and in Allah's lordship as we have as Muslims, but they have that general belief in the creator. And then you have the theists, the ones who believe in the creator, but obviously they believe as well that he intervenes and controls the universe, and they believe in his revelation and that he sent prophets as a source of guidance to all of mankind. When it comes to the new atheist movement, because in the past, atheism or atheists looked at their movement or their ideology as being a personal choice. You're someone who wants to be religion, someone who wants to be religious, who wants to follow a religion. You're someone who, they say that there's someone who doesn't believe in the existence of the creator. Different strokes for different folks, and everyone goes a separate way. They weren't really du'at per se. They didn't call to the religion. But there was a turning point. We're going to show you here in a minute, inshallah, what that turning point was that started the new atheist movement and really made them focus on giving dawah, calling to their methodology, calling to their ideology, their way of life, or their understanding of the world that we live in. And the word new atheism, it was first mentioned in an interview of Gary Wolf, who was interviewed by The Wired. and it was called the Church of Non-Believers, the Church of Non-Believers. And that was in 2006. So in this interview, and it's available online, he mentioned that this terminology of new atheism. And from there, it spread. And when you look at the characteristics of this movement, and at the end, I'll show you the main source that I'll show you now before I forget, because sometimes I forget. The book of, and if you guys speak Arabic, of Sheikh Abdur al-Ujairi, Milishiyat al-Ilhad in Arabic, you can see it here. This is, the main thing we focus our research on tonight. The Sheikh, he did all the hard work, and obviously we had to do a lot of translation and stuff for the English part, and we added some other things here and there, obviously. But the Sheikh, he's the one who deserves the effort for the hard work of gathering this information. It's a very good book, and it's a very good madkhal, a very good introduction. If you do speak Arabic, it's definitely a must read, inshallah. I'm going through it now, more than once, alhamdulillah. Very, very beneficial book, alhamdulillah. May Allah bless the Sheikh and his efforts. And perhaps if you guys can find a PDF, you can put it, inshallah, into the chat and send it to the brothers and sisters so they can read, inshallah. Milishiyat al-Ilhad, Sheikh Abdullah ibn Saleh al-Ujairi. The main characteristics of the movement, as the Sheikh mentioned in the book, 6 things that really stick out to you about this movement. And that is, first of all, their enthusiasm and spreading their ideology. And we're going to go into detail in that in just a minute. And perhaps in this session, that's going to be the main thing we're going to focus on. It really is going to spread light on the reality of this movement and how powerful and the enthusiasm and the diligence they have in really spreading their ideology throughout the world, and what they've reached in a short amount of time. It's something that we really need to reflect on, and I believe that we can benefit on in many ways, and it should be a source of inspiration for us of working in the field of da'wah to get on top of our game. Because if the people of evil are working that hard for their evil, then how can the people of khair and the people of haqq, the people of the truth, how can we not be working harder, or at least just as hard as they're working, if not harder, to spread the truth and to refute the falsehood, inshallah ta'ala. When you look at one of the characteristics as well, is that they're very hostile towards religions. And that's not just Islam, it's into religions in general. And that is, if you look at their approach to even Christianity, and many of their writings and their refutation against Christianity itself, and even some of their own colleagues who are scientists who believe, they might not necessarily be Christians and definitely not Muslims, but they are just people who believe in the supreme being. They believe in a creator, and even yuhajimun, even they're very hostile towards them as well. They're attacking them as well, even though they're all scientists. And even you'll see in several examples, perhaps we'll mention this in the second session, where people like Sam Harris, who attack leading scientists just because of the fact that they believe in the creator, and people who have high positions and in important institutes, of the fact they believe that these people should be removed and should not have these positions. So it's not just towards any people a particular religion, it's towards all religion or anyone who actually believes in the creator. They also use terrorism as an excuse to attack religions, one of their characteristics. And also they have very furious attacks against Islam itself. And that is, obviously they attack all of the religions as we mentioned, but they focus in general. You're going to see several examples about how they focus on Islam and attacking Islam. Also, they make atheism very appealing. They make it cool. And you can see several examples of how they do it through mainstream media. And that encourages especially a lot of the younger generation to follow that, because they think they're into the cool crowd or into the in crowd. And they, science, look at what science has reached, which is true. We said science has reached a lot, hasn't reached everything as they claim. And that's the 6th characteristic, which is scientism. That's what our brother Sabur talked about last night in detail. It's very important to go back to his lecture and to listen to that. Scientism, which in a nutshell is they have a very extreme approach to science. They believe that science has the answer to everything. And that is obviously something that is absurd. And Sabur gave several examples from that last night. So I'm not going to repeat what he said there. You can go back to that, inshallah ta'ala. So let's focus on the first characteristic, which is their enthusiasm and spreading their ideology. Like we said before, atheists were not really into da'wah and calling and pushing their ideology. The turning point which changed all of that was on 9/11, September 11th. That was the turning point. And I'm going to give you two examples from two of the main atheists who said that this was the turning point for them, Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins. And Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins, they're two of the members of probably the most famous or popular atheists in today, obviously the Four Horsemen. If you studied before, you know, it's just a revising for you. But if you haven't studied, someone who's new to the topic, just to mention, inshallah, as something to know who these individuals are. Christopher Hitchens and Daniel Dennett and Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris, these are called the Four Horsemen of atheism. And after the death of Hitchens, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who was this Somali Murtadda, the Somali lady who left Islam, and they called her the +1 horsewoman. And Sam Harris, he said that, you know, on several occasions that 9/11 is what inspired him. In fact, in his book, The End of Faith, which is one of the first books written, the main books of this movement, the new atheist movement, he started writing this book on September 12th, and the day after September 11th, that the terrorist attacks on America. So this was the main point for many of them. And he mentioned this in a YouTube video as well, Sam Harris' journey to atheism, sparked by 9/11. So this was the thing that really shook him, it moved him. Even Richard Dawkins in his famous TED Talk, Militant Atheism, and pay attention to that terminology, because it's going to come more, we'll talk about more in detail later, inshallah. But it's important to understand their approach. And that goes back to what we said, the second characteristic, which is, you know, they're very hostile towards religion, and they call themselves militant atheists, or sometimes they call themselves in-your-face atheists. So these individuals have a different approach. Not all atheists are like that. We're going to mention perhaps in a second session. I don't think we're going to have time to finish all of it tonight. We might mention we'll mention several examples of other atheists who are against their approach. But obviously, these are individuals, Dawkins and Harris and others. This is the Four Horsemen in general. These are their approach is more of the in-your-face militant style of atheism. Richard Dawkins said at the end of this TED Talk, and the last thing he said, and he said that people are always going on about how did September 11th change you. Well, here's how it changed me. He said, let's all stop being so damn respectful. And meaning this, what he means by this is being respectful towards religion. It's time that we openly attack and openly become militant towards our approach towards religion. And he said in an article he wrote on the 15th of September in The Guardian, this just 4 days after the terrorist attacks of 9/11, he said, to fill a world with religion or religions of Abrahamic kind is like littering the streets with loaded guns. Don't be surprised if they're used. And similar to him was Christopher Hitchens and Daniel Dennett also had a huge impact on 9/11. Why is this turning point so important? Because this is the time that this is what sparked what came into mainstream media and became normal and okay after that, was the issue of the God debate, to debate, you know, the existence of God from other. Even these individuals, they received, as you're going to see, you know, the mainstream platforms. They became icons, not just leaders of a movement. They became icons. Even the likes of Dawkins, who was, they brought on cartoon shows like The Simpsons and South Park. So bring him in there to push this ideology. And something here, very important, if you've been reflecting, the fact that after 9/11, and all of us know what happened to the Muslims, we're not talking about the terrorists who attacked, because everyone's against them. You know, this is something none of us approve of. But what happened to Islam in general, to those who were active in practicing Muslims, that all of them, all of us, we faced a lot of things after that, you know, being stopped, being singled out, being watched. You know, all of these things happened to Muslims who were serious about the deen after 9/11. Alhamdulillah, the things now, it's pretty much going back to normal, alhamdulillah. And we don't face the things we did then. So it was a difficult time for all of us. But the fact that this movement was sparked from then and then became mainstream it also reminds us of those who are behind supporting such movements in mainstream media and in the issue of intelligence agencies who have agendas, which is obviously we know from their agendas is not khair for the people. They're not looking for good for the people. They have a certain agenda, certain ideologies that they want to spread. So this was a suitable way to get people away from religion. Obviously, trying in the past to debate, Christianity and Islam, they couldn't defeat Islam like that. We have preachers like Sheikh Ahmed Didat, Rahimahullah, Dr. Zakir Naik, who are very powerful in their debates. And, even the brothers on a small level, our brothers at, Speaker's Corner or wherever they might be on the Dawah tables, who had very, very strong knowledge in Christianity and could easily refute any Christianity. So they needed to come with something else which seemed very powerful. Obviously, in the days that we live in, with what science has reached, something amazing. So this now is a beautiful tool to use for them, an easy tool to use for them to push a different ideology, which goes against, not just Islam, but in religions in general. So a new world order, a new ideology can be pushed. So you have to, realize this and see that this is something, it's not just a coincidence that it happened this time. It's not just a coincidence that they received all of the media and all of the mainstream platforms that you're about to see. When it comes to how they spread their ideology, there's perhaps we could say 5 main tools or ways or means, methodologies they used in order to spread their ideology. And it all started with the foundation of books. And this is something, and it's so important that, as they say, leaders are readers. The people who are truly successful are the ones that read. And it's very important that if we've gotten ourselves away from reading, that we get back into reading. We get our children accustomed to reading as well. Because, no matter who they are, if they're people of evil or people of good, it all happens, alhamdulillah, through reading. Behind me, all of the books of our scholars, alhamdulillah, where it's all, calling to good, alhamdulillah, the khair. And you have the people of shar who out there as well, but the foundation you're going to find is through the books. So the foundation of this movement is started through their books, and then it exploded after that, obviously through media, and then they established different organizations that pushed the atheist ideology and methodology, then through the internet with a lot of websites, and then they used other means, general means. They have different campaigns, as we're going to see several examples. These are the main 5 tools, the main 5 ways that they use to spread their ideology. When it comes to their books, the most important books, or perhaps the cornerstone books of this movement, are 5 books. And they are The End of Faith by Sam Harris, which is the first book written. Then The God Delusion, written by Richard Dawkins, which is the most famous of all of these books. And I'm going to give you some numbers that are, mind-boggling when it comes to these books in a minute, inshallah. Breaking the Spell by Daniel C. Dennett, and then God, the Failed Hypothesis by Victor J. Stinger. And then the 5th is God is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens. And obviously, as Muslims, we always say Allahu Akbar. He came with the complete opposite. And I don't know, and perhaps that was the objective. And to go against what the Muslims say right there by saying God is great, by saying God is not great. The first book, we said the first book written was The End of Faith by Sam Harris. This book was written in 2004, and it received the PEN Americans Center of Literacy Awards. And it was also on the New York Times bestseller list for 33 weeks. And obviously it focused on being very hostile towards religion, and how religion forbids from rational and logical thinking, and that it's the religion that is a cause for extremism and terrorism. Obviously, the main objective of him writing this book came after 9/11. So that's clear. Obviously, that was the agenda of this book. In 2006, The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins, which we said is the most famous of these books, was translated in several languages. From 2006 to 2010, more than 2 million copies were sold. It was 51 weeks on the New York Times bestsellers list. And the book focuses obviously on God's existence, and as the author considers it as a delusion. And he said, whenever a person is delusional, it's called insanity. And whenever a group of people are delusional, it's called a religion. And something you look at the New York Times bestsellers, 51 weeks, 2 million copies. There's something even more startling when it comes to numbers. I remember I was sitting with some brothers in the UK. It was 2013, 2014. There was an interview. It's online. Mr. Dawkins talked about the translation of his book, The God Delusion. And this book, and you think translated to the main languages, Spanish, Russian, French, whatever it might be. I'm sure it was translated in these languages. But the language he talked about in the interview, he said Arabic, Urdu, and Farsi. Why would he be focusing on translating his book to these three languages? Obviously, because these are the languages of the Muslims. And he said that the unofficial copy of this book that was put on the PDF that was put online, he said there were more than 13 million downloads of it. 13 million copies in a short amount of time that were spread throughout the Muslim world. Obviously, it's important for us as Muslims when it comes to the numbers game that we realize that perhaps these numbers could be sometimes blown out of proportion. I mean, were this many copies actually sold? Was it really a bestseller for 51 weeks? Were there really 13 million copies downloaded? Because obviously these platforms are controlled by these individuals. So it's very easy for them to, fabricate these numbers. And obviously when people see these type of numbers, they want to follow. Even sometimes the views on YouTube, the followers on Twitter, are they really this high? They could be, it's true. But at the same time, they could be, adding them, bulking them up in order to, give more appeal to the message of this individual. But nonetheless, there are big numbers. We have to realize this. There are big numbers, and these big numbers should encourage us, like we said, to get on top of our game, to study and to know and to be able to refute, inshallah ta'ala. And this is the objectives of these sittings. It's for us to, realize the reality that we're living in. The third book, Breaking the Spell by Daniel C. Dennett, in 2006 also was written. He divided the book into three main parts. The first thing he discussed in the motivation or justification for the entire project, which is, can science study religion? And should science study religion? Obviously, in the second part, he affirmed that this, is the case. And then he proceeds to use the tools of evolutionary biology to suggest possible theories regarding the origin of religion, and that it goes back to ancient folk beliefs. And then he analyzes in the last part of the book the effects of religion on today's world, and does religion make us moral? And this is a very important topic for when it comes to discussing with atheists. And also Brother Sabor alluded to that tonight, inshallah. Perhaps in another session we'll go in more detail on that with you guys as well. The issue of morals and their belief and their religion, their new, because like we said last night, scientism, it's no longer just it's actually a faith, it's a religion that they've made, and they believe that science can prove everything. But there's so many examples, like Sabor gave last night, that they and from it is the issue of morals. They don't have an answer for morals, what is right and what is wrong, through science. So therefore, they try, obviously, as he tried here in this book, and later Sam Harris in one of his follow-up books as well, The Moral Landscape, How Science Can Determine Human Values also. And he tried to answer this, but this is a serious issue, obviously, that they have as atheists. Then you have the fourth book, which is God, the Failed Hypothesis, by Victor J. Stinger. And something interesting, if you look at the subtitle, what the book is about, it explains the whole thing, which is How Science Shows God Does Not Exist. So obviously he's arguing here that there's no evidence for any wujudillah, for the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for any deity. And once again, this was a New York Times bestseller. And then you have Christopher Hitchens, who wrote his book, God Is Not Great, in 2007. And once again, look at the stats, look at the numbers, so you can see how dangerous the situation we're in, and how fast or how hard these people are working, and how fast their ideology is spreading. He published this book on May 1st, 2007. Within a week, it reached the number 2 on Amazon bestsellers list, behind Harry Potter's The Deathly Hallows. And then it reached number 1 on the New York Times bestsellers list in just the third week. So this shows us then the fact that these individuals and how hard they're working and spreading their batil, their falsehood. And like we said, this needs to be an inspiration for us to wake up, to learn and to know this, and to stand up with the haqq, inshallah, and refuting their sin. But obviously you have to learn their misconceptions in order to be able to refute them, inshallah ta'ala. Sam Harris followed up with several books, Letter to a Christian Nation. This was refuting many of the things that they had said about his book, The End of Faith. And now we said The Moral Landscape, and also a book called Free Will. And Christopher Hitchens as well. He has the Portable Atheist, Essential Readings for Non-Believer. Also, Is Christianity Good for the World? So like you can see from the titles here right away, it's not just Islam that they focus on. They also focus on Christianity and any believers. He also has Hitch 22. And something interesting here, Hitch 22, where did this come from? It came from his nickname Hitch, who was given to him by Salman Rushdie, who wrote the Satanic Verses, Al-Ayat al-Shaytaniyah. And Hitchens and many others, and they stood up in defense of him, obviously, when the fatwas were issued against him, back in the day. Anyways, the point is, obviously, you can see that the enemies of Islam in different shapes and shades, they all come together. They're all working for one objective, which is obviously to fight religion and to fight Islam in particular.
دين ومكارم أخلاق ترفعنا فوق الآفاق.
Then they came up with other books as well. So they didn't stop with these books or the core cornerstone books. They also came with easy to read books in order to reach a larger audience. So they came up with Atheism for Dummies. You have Science for Dummies, Biology for Dummies, Driving for Dummies, Cooking for Dummies. So they came up with Atheism for Dummies. And then this book focused on the history of atheism, some of the concepts of atheism, and how to live as an atheist. Then they have Atheism 101, Disbelief 101. Everything you know about God is wrong. The Disinformation Guide to Religion. And this book focused on the issue of the existence of God and the stance towards religions and the stance towards atheism. They also have the Young Atheist Survival Guide, helping secular students thrive. And they also focus on children's books like I Wonder, What Do You Believe, Our Family Tree, An Evolution Story. Even Mr. Dawkins himself got into the children's books, and he wrote a book for children called The Magic of Reality, How We Know What's Really True. And also they even focused on educational books, parenting books, how to be a parent who raises atheist children. They have a book called Parenting Beyond Belief, Allahu Akbar. And they have the manual for creating atheists and raising free thinkers. And pay attention to this terminology, free thinkers, because this is a terminology that they want to use instead of atheism, because they understand that atheism, or being an atheist in mainstream culture, and to a large extent still, it's still something looked at as being derogatory, something looked down upon. Therefore, you'll find that they want to call themselves free thinkers. And the danger of this type of terminology, it sounds really appealing. It sounds good. Who doesn't want their child to be a free thinker, to be someone, who knows science, someone who understands how the world functions, someone who has ibda, who's creative? All of us want this. And if we found that our children like this in school, we become very happy as parents. Obviously, the difference between us as theists and them, we believe that something possible with religion to reach this. Obviously, they do not. But then just the title and that type of thing, free thinkers. So this is the danger, once again, for our children, is that this type of terminology can be in the curriculum they study as well. If we were to see now a chapter in our children's science book, Raising Free Thinkers, that sounds awesome, man. That's cool. I like that. I want my kids to focus. But what's the objective here? It's focusing on, bringing them away from religion and bringing them away from believing in the Creator. So this is the issue of books. This is the foundation. This was the foundation of the movement. It started through these types of books. But one of the main things they focused on after it really exploded was through media. And obviously, in the days we live in, people are going to watch and listen to stuff more than they're going to read. But that doesn't downplay the importance of books as well. One of the main things they focused on, obviously, was films. And these films, sometimes the main theme might be towards atheism, or part of the film might be, something, or one of the actors is atheist, or and he expresses his views. So that's, indirectly getting the message across, or directly, where the main theme of the movie is about atheism. And we'll give you several examples of that, inshallah ta'ala. Then they focus on TV shows and TV series, children's cartoons, documentaries, interviews with famous atheists on platforms like the Discovery Channel, National Geographic, things that we would think, was something we want our children to watch. And if I ask my son, now, what are you watching? National Geographic. MashaAllah, excellent. What are you watching? The Discovery Channel. Mumtaz. But then all of a sudden, this interview pops up. So this is pushing, once again, the agenda. Many of the famous actors, and you'd be shocked how many actors are actually atheists. Many of the music, the musicians, also the people who are different songs and music videos focus on pushing atheism as well. Social media, they're very active, very popular on social media now as well. If you look at the issue of films, some films that the main theme of atheism, and I want you to just, before we mention some of the names, to reflect on these names. Have you seen some of these films I'm about to mention? Have your children? Obviously, I want you to tell me in the chat. And so it's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Perhaps something we know, obviously something we shouldn't be watching as Muslims, but just for yourself, say, have I seen these movies or not? Have my children seen these movies? Where the main theme, or part of the main theme, is calling to atheism, to get the message out there. Contact, whatever works. Sunset Limited, Agora, Paul, Planet of the Apes, Creation, The Ledge, Salvation Boulevard, The Invitation of Lying, or the Invention of Lying. The Invention of Lying. All of these movies, which probably many of us have seen, are calling directly to atheism. The Invention for Lying, for example, by the famous actor and comedian Ricky Gervais, if that's how you say his name. In this movie, in a nutshell, basically what it's about, his mother's about to die, and they live in a society where they don't know how to lie. No one lies in this society, but he wants to make his mother feel better. In fact, she's about to die, so he lies to her and tells her that you're going to go to a better place, you're going to have this and that. So basically describing for her that she's going to heaven, she's going to Jannah. And then the people overheard him in the hospital and started to spread. He was someone who had a lot of misfortune, a lot of, wasn't going through a lot of problems in his life. And after this, the people heard this and they spread the news. So he comes home, people are waiting for him to tell them more about what he was telling them about the afterlife. So he comes out with 2 pizza boxes where he wrote 10 things, 10 commandments of what they need to do and what they need to follow. Obviously, there's this man in the sky who's in control of everything. And, in the hereafter, this is what happens to you. And so basically to make fun of religion and, to make it just, it's a theory. And then he took advantage of this, obviously, of the success that came to him from that. And even, appeared with a long beard in part of the movie. All of this in order to what? To get the message out there that religion, it's just one big lie that some men, meaning the prophets, came up with in order for personal gain and personal benefits. Obviously, if you go back to what we talked about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, obviously you can refute that very easily with the lifestyle that he lived, alayhi salatu wasalam. That just popped into my mind. And all the prophets like that who weren't obviously into worldly affairs, but nonetheless, obviously this is the description they try to paint in this movie. That's just one example. Also, the TV shows. The TV shows or TV series, and look at some of these names. Have you watched these, or do you watch these? Lost, Supernatural, Bones, House MD, Battlestar Galactica, Family Guy, Big Bang Theory, Young Sheldon, Community. Many of these, if not all of them, are on famous Arab TV channels like NBC, where they translate these. House MD, Bones, all of these are Lost, all of those were there before. I don't know about Family Guy, Big Bang Theory as well. I think Family Guy as well. Big Bang Theory, Young Sheldon. And the Big Bang Theory and Young Sheldon, what is this about? Obviously, the Big Bang Theory is Sheldon when he became older. Young Sheldon was when he was young, and he was so superior and so into science and so knowledgeable. He went to university at a young age, and his family are below him. His colleagues are below him. The teachers are below him. He understands everything. And one of the main things of his character is that he's atheist. He doesn't believe in God. So this is something they really push. Scientism. If you look at in the Big Bang Theory, they really push it. And how many of us watch shows like this? How many of us let our children watch these shows and we don't even pay attention? Different children's movies, Happy Feet, Kiana, the prophecy. Where the main theme is focusing on the issue of atheism, pushing atheism. Subhanallah. And you wouldn't think something Happy Feet was penguins and this, it's something, but that's what it's about. Like we said before, on cartoon shows like The Simpsons, South Park, you have a guest appearance by Richard Dawkins, the head of the new atheist movement in the world today. Different documentaries that came out, which they put a lot of time and a lot of money into. Richard Dawkins has the series The Root of All Evil, Part 1, The God Delusion, Part 2, the Virus of Faith. He also has a documentary called The Genius of Charles Darwin. He also has the Faith School Menace, where he explores the effects of faith schools on the students and the effects it has on society in general. And you have, like we said, several interviews with prominent atheists on like the Discovery and National Geographic channels. You have famous actors, and I can't mention all of them to you, but if you look at, if you type in on Google, atheist actors, you're going to see like on Wikipedia by itself, even I saw one other website, 147, 157 of them, different ones mentioned or something like that. Some crazy numbers of the amount of actors. Now, when our children watch the movies of these actors, when we watch the movies of these actors, what is the impact that's going to have on us and our households? Obviously, many people idolize these people. People want to be like these people. And these individuals, they find that they don't believe. They're atheists. And many of them are very open about it. Like if you look, for example, what's the dude, the one we mentioned, Ricky Garvis, the one from the comedian. He's got a lot of, and that's another way they use this. Comedians like George Carlin, Ricky Garvis himself, who are straight atheists and don't believe at all. Or you have other likes Bill Burr, might not necessarily be an atheist, but kind of downplay and look down upon religion, and these type of things pull people away from religion. And we think, oh, just comedy, no big deal, watching ourselves or our children. But this is pushing the ideology out there. And someone like Ricky Gervais, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He came after as my time, but I mean, I think that's how you say it. And many of the actors I might mention to you, I might mess up on their names. The older guys, I know them, obviously. That's when I used to watch movies before I was Muslim. But now, many of these people I've never heard of, to be honest with you. Some of them I've seen, some of them I haven't, or on different news channels and what have you. So if I do mispronounce some of their names, that's the reason why. Alhamdulillah, that's good that we don't know them. Alhamdulillah, we can be proud of that. The point is that these actors who many of many of our children idolize, and many of us as well, perhaps, that these people are atheists. So when you see someone, you're like, what? And they give you that, wow, how you impressed are you by, you follow their movies, you follow them online, and you find out they don't believe. Woody Allen, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, George Clooney, Robin Williams, Johnny Depp, Daniel Radcliffe, Jelena Evans, and these are these new ones. Like I said, I don't know these guys. Kevin Bacon, yeah, I know him. He's from back in the day. Zach Efron, Juliana Moore, if I'm pronouncing it, I don't know. And there's Seth MacFarlane, Judy Foster, and so many. Just a huge list of famous Hollywood actors. And that's the point, is obviously to show you how much it's spread in the mainstream media and being pushed down our throats by these individuals. Even many of them, like we said, the example we gave of Rick Garvis, who gave several interviews, and he's very active in pushing his ideology, not just the movie, not just in his comedy, but also as well in his his interviews as well. And you have as well, in mainstream music and music videos, the issue of atheism being pushed in different songs. Even as an example, from back in the day, 1971. So it's not something just new. You have in 1971 with John Lennon and his music, Imagine. Look at some of the lyrics. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. Imagine the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. nothing to kill or die for. I mean, obviously, this is one of the things they focus on: religion, issue of wars and what have you. Even if you look at the amount of people who have been killed by atheists, are much more, and much more examples you can look at. People, any non-religious, any war criminals who have killed millions of people around the world, but they always focus on this, that religion is the cause of wars and what have you. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion to imagine the people living life in peace. Those are his examples. And so several examples you'll find in music like that, some of it directly, some of it indirectly. I remember the music that impacted me when I was young was, gangster rap. I was into gangster rap back in the day, not into hip hop, gangster rap. And obviously, the individual who we consider to be the godfather of rap, Eazy-E, who had an impact on all of us during the days I was coming up in. And he mentioned, one of the lyrics is still in my mind, subhanAllah, where he would say, niggers, Christian, Jews, if there's hell below, we're all going to go. And subhanAllah, this saying that if there's hell below, we're all going to go. If the shek, doubt. Right again, they put this someone who we grew up idolizing. And until now, many of his lyrics, which are not good, are just, programmed into my mind. As they say, there's just, certain things you can't delete from the memory of the computer, in your computer of your brain, it just doesn't go. And then from that, as that lyric, it pops up every now and then. And imagine if it was someone who idolized and follow these individuals, that they say, what? If there's hell below, we're all going to go. Give the shek. Prepare yourself that for following other than Allah's rule, they're going to die. You're going to go to hell. I remember I was checking into a hotel in Dubai. This was many years ago. And when I was in the hotel, actually, I was going to visit one of the mashaykh in his hotel, and when I was there. And as I walked in and looked in the media, the famous rapper, and I don't know if she's a rapper or a singer, I don't know what she does, what's her name? Rihanna, whatever her name is, with Eminem, the famous rapper. So all these guys came after my time. But nonetheless, it was his song apparently with her featured in it. I wrote down the name of it here. What was it called? Because it came when it popped into my mind. Where they're talking about hell. There it is. Love the way you lie. Look at the topic. Love the way you lie. So what are they calling to? But more absurd than that is the video and some of the words that she was singing. So there's like fire behind them. They're going to be burnt in the fire, right? And she said, does this, but I like the way it hurts, talking about the fire or whatever. So I was like, wow, I'm looking at this thing, and as I see as I'm walking in, and I'm listening to these lyrics, I'm like, wow, that's really satanic there, right? So that shows you that these individuals, this is our children, and we're allowing them to listen, or some of us might even be, mubtala. We were tested where we might listen to music and things like that. And this is the message that's being pushed through this music, through these individuals, to make you someone who is a disbeliever, or to at least put doubt into your belief. So it's very important that we realize the dangers of it. Many of their strategies as well is that they focus on, they have different organizations where they push for their this movement of the new atheist movement. So it's not just on an individual level, it's something very high, something very organized. And this is a lesson. And I always tell the brothers, with a Sahaba Academy or wherever it might be throughout the world, different movements that have been successful, it's important that we study these movements. What did they do to become successful? One of the most successful people in history were my people, the Irish Americans, not because I'm from them, but it's a reality. Look what the Irish did in 100 years. When we arrived in America in 1850, between 1845 and 1850, that was during the famine, and when the British poisoned our crops to kill us, and they killed killed about 1 million of our forefathers. Many of our forefathers fled to America, and obviously from them were my grandparents, or some of them. So when they fled to America And then we got there in the 1845s, 1850s. We weren't allowed to work. We weren't allowed to go to school. There was really not much difference between the Irish Americans and between the blacks during that time. Most of us had to fight for our rights. The Irish, during that time, our women had to work as servants. We had to work the hard jobs. But eventually, within 50 years, 1900, we became equal to all of the other European races in America. We established our own universities, such as Boston College, Notre Dame. We established our own schools because we weren't allowed to study in schools and universities back in the day. So we established our own things. And by 1950, 100 years later, we became I don't want to say superior, but we became the top of all of the European races, basically who run things. Now, even in America, if you look at many sensitive positions in the government and this, it's somewhat of Irish descent, and many of the presidents as well. So whether you look at the fire departments, the police departments, and the military, you'll find that they're Irish. So it's a good example. Why am I mentioning this? Not to toot our own horn, as we say, but to mention that this is a success story that we could study as Muslims now in Germany, as Muslims in the UK. We're fighting for our rights. And how the heck did they do that in 100 years? Let's do the same thing. Let's benefit from that. And that's one of the things, is to benefit from history. So even some of the things, when you study the new atheist movement, and like I know I'm going really fast, and I apologize maybe if we're moving too fast, because I'm trying to cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. We need much more time for this. I think it needs actually a course. It's a very beautiful topic. So if you look at what they've done, it should be inspiring for us, and we can benefit from many of the things that they've done to spread their evil and their ideology, to spread the khair, to spread the good, and to refute the falsehood and teach the people the truth as well, inshallah ta'ala. And it should make us want to work harder. They have organizations with big money, big supporters. So where's the big money and the big supporters who are supporting the dawah activities of the Muslims? Is what we need. We have groups now, alhamdulillah, who are working hard. Alhamdulillah, we have here Sahaba Academy, and many of the projects we want to take, issue comes up of funding. Where's the funding for this group? We have, alhamdulillah, now Sapiens Institute in the UK with the brothers who are with us here at Sahaba Academy. We hosted our brother Hamza Zortis, Subur Ahmed, Imran Hussein. Even now, alhamdulillah, I will be one of the instructors soon at Sapien Academy, inshallah. And we're going to be doing stuff with Arabic with them as well. The same programs that they're doing in English, I will be delivering them in Arabic soon, inshallah. That's something, and now is the first time we announce it. But inshallah, you'll see the khair will be, inshallah, some of it coming before and after Ramadan, inshallah. Something working very hard with the brothers to get it out there in Arabic as well, alhamdulillah. So these organizations, who are the brothers who are going to step up and support them? We shouldn't, when it comes to a project we need to do to spread the khair, we shouldn't say we don't have the funding. You see the people of Balta, they're out there supporting their funding. Where are we? Where are our supporters to support us in our projects? So make sure that if you have the ability, the people that we push hard for, our brothers who have the means, who have the money to help us spread the khair, inshallah ta'ala. And not just the organizations, I mentioned all of the organizations who are calling the khair, inshallah. If you look at some of them, you have, for example, the Atheist Alliance International, the International Humanist and Ethical Union. Look at the names. The Richard Dawkins Foundation for Reason and Science. Any of these beautiful names. Ranana, huh? You hear, you're like, oh, mashallah, huh? And I'll give you some examples. If you look at some of the contribution, go for example to some of the PowerPoint. I didn't put it on tonight. I could have showed you on the pictures. SubhanAllah, if it has the Atheist Alliance International, if you go to their website and you type in membership, they say the contribution levels, and I'm reading that directly from what's on their website. It says each membership, except junior, is available at 4 different contribution levels. This gives our members the choice to pay little or a lot, according to, pay attention, to their commitment to the cause, according to their commitment and the depth of their pockets. They say we playfully, this is about a CSE, we playfully refer to these levels as skeptic, apostate, heathen, and antichrist. These are the names. If you go down, each one of them has a lifetime membership. You pay this much. For a yearly membership, you pay this month. There's different options. For a monthly membership, you pay this much, and you support one of these four causes and supporting their dawah and the website. So you see they're very, very, very active. And also one of the things they benefit from, they have a lot of websites where they're very active on these websites, and they also benefit from different campaigns, different movements. So for example, the LGBTQRSU movement, you'll find that they benefited from, or the gay movement, as Mr. Dawkins refers to it as, and as we'll mention now. If you look at what Dawkins said in the beginning of The God Delusion, he said, "My dream is that this book, it will help people come out, exactly as the case of the gay movement." He said, the more people come out, the easier it will be for others to join them. There will be a critical mass and the initiation of the chain of reaction. So this is what he said at the beginning of the book. So obviously the objective of certain campaigns that they have is to encourage people to come out of the closet, as it was in the LGBT or gay community before. That this was, what they were calling people to come out of the closet. Why? Because when people come out of the closet, it becomes more widely spread. It becomes more accepted. So they will be able to encourage others, and atheism will become more mainstream and accepted, just like the LGBT now has become mainstream, become something accepted. And it's actually become something as well that you can't even speak about. If you speak about, you'll be labeled, you'll be banned from speaking in public platforms and what have you. So obviously the agenda of the new atheist movement is the same. They want to ban people from, they're trying, and that's why you'll find some of the organizations, they focus on, especially the issue of Darwinism and pushing that on the schools and the curriculums. And even the people now who are trying to get into the school, Tasmim al-Dhaki, and sometimes the terminology goes from me in English. It went from me in English. And it was intelligent design. The intelligent design, obviously they're trying to have that as a balance. Many of the Christian communities, they focus on the intelligent design and as a way to counter Darwinism. So now they're trying to at least get that into the curriculum, and you'll find that they have organizations who fight that. And there's a famous case where they went against it to try to make sure that didn't get put into the curriculum in the schools. So they're working very, very hard. And they have different campaigns. Like, for example, they had the Out campaign, which encouraged atheists to come out, to share their stories, and start showing off their identity with the letter A on their shirts and on their bumper stickers. And also they had a campaign on weareatheism.com. They gave advice for those who want to come out and encourage them to share their stories via photos and videos. They have certain celebrations and public holidays. For example, Darwin Day, which is on the February 12th, Atheist Day, March 23rd, Blasphemy Day, subhanAllah, Blasphemy Day, which is on December 30th. And why was this date chosen when it was established in 2009 by the Center for Inquiry? They chose this date because the 30th of December is the date that the Danish newspapers spread the pictures of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, slandering our beloved Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So they chose this date and they called it the official Blasphemy Day. Also, they have different campaigns on billboards and buses. Perhaps many of you saw the campaign that Dawkins did on the bus called the Atheist Bus Campaign in 2009 with the slogan, "There's probably no God. Now stop worrying and enjoy your life." So this is just some of the things that they use in order to spread their method. And inshallah ta'ala, I think we'll speak with the brothers and we'll have a second session to go into some of the other characteristics and what we need to do in order to counter them, inshallah ta'ala. Until then, Allah knows best. Allahu a'lam wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you everyone for attending. And I apologize at the end if there's any questions. I won't be able to answer because I have another commitment that I'm going to have to go to, inshallah. I was hoping to finish a bit earlier in order to answer the questions, but unfortunately, I went a bit longer than I had planned to. So inshallah, perhaps in another session, if there's any questions, we'll be able to answer them then. And Allah knows best. Jazakumullah khairan wa barakallahu fikum.
Jazakallah khaira, Shaykhana al-Habib. Thank you for this very beautiful and important lecture. I think now you see the
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
the shahadat
Jazakallah
shukr
khair,
for
yeah,
you,
jazakallah
but more important to make dua for you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you
khair.
and give barakah in your life and in your
Ameen.
lectures. Jazakallah khair, Shaykhana. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
فلو قد ذقت من حلواه طعما لا آثرت التعلم واجتهدت ولم يشغلك عنه هوى مطاع ولا دنيا بزخرفها فتنتا.